Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBassVideos.com, and this is the third lesson in my Pentapositional System Chord Studies course. And in this particular lesson, we're going to take a look at the major seventh chord. Applying these same principles to the major seventh chord, we're going to have a lot of similarities that cross over from the minor seventh chord and the dominant seventh chord. And that is that we're playing a 5-string bass here, and as I go down to find my lowest diatonic note, I'm going to find that I'm going to start on the root of the chord. Now, herein lies a few little exceptions that you're going to find with this pentapositional system, and this really occurs in the open positions, is that sometimes you are going to have some extra diatonic notes, like in the case of the major seventh in C, the B is diatonic to the C major 7. So, but it's not the same pattern or the same visual shape that occurs that we've had in the past across our bass from 7. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute as applied to the major 7. So you can add those extra notes in, but I don't want some of you guys to get confused. So if you're a little confused about that, stick with the shapes that I'm delineating here in the beginning. After you've got those down in those open positions, if there's a few extra notes that fit, you can throw those in. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to be applying these shapes all over the fingerboard, and as we go into the next course that we're going to do, which is also related to this pentapositional system, you're going to see how we're going to be transitioning from key to key in the same position. So we're going to kind of need to know these shapes as they are to get started, and that's just the way that it is. So just kind of bear with me on that one. But like I say, if you kind of see what's going on with this and you go, oh yeah, that B's in there, you can throw that in. It doesn't really matter. But for now, I'm just going to be regimented and do the actual forms as they're written on the PDF grids that you've got. So the first form is from the root. So I've got my root, my third, my fifth, 7, root, third, fifth, and then my 7, and then I'm going to play that back down. Then the next form moves up sequentially. This is going to be from the third, and remember what we had with the dominant chord. Anything that had the major third in it, you're going to have the duplication from the third. Usually if the chord has a minor third, the duplication comes from the fifth, as you'll see across the board with all these chord forms. So if I start on the next form here, I've got the third first variation. So I'm starting on E and I go 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root, and then I'm just playing back down the form. The second variation of the third is going to start here and I go 3, 5, 7, root, and then I go 3, 5, 7, root, and I come across this way. You can see that there's this kind of diagonal shape that occurs here across the fretboard, which is a little challenging, and you really want to practice that to get that smooth. Then we continue up sequentially, and I start from the fifth, and I'm going 5, 7, root, and then I go 3, 5, 7, root, 3, and then come back down. And then continually up the fretboard sequentially, I start on the 7. And this is what I'm talking about. Here's the way the form looks from the 7th in the major 7th forms. I start with my third finger and I go 7, root, 3, then I shift over here to the 5, 7, root, 3, 5, and then come back down this way. And then the next form is from the root an octave above, so I've got root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, and then come back down. So if I play each one up and down in that little drill that we had to familiarize ourselves with each one of these shapes, I'm going to have something like this. way that we applied to the other chord types, we need to start moving these chords through the cycle of fourths. So we're going to go to the key of F, and we're going to apply these same principles. So if I go to the key of F, go to my lowest diatonic note, which is going to be C, I'm going to find that that's the fifth. So I go 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3. And then I go to 7, 5 transcends to form 7. So I go 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5. Then 7 transcends to the root. So I go root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7. Then this moves sequentially up to the third, first variation. 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root. Then that moves up to the third, second variation, so I have 3, 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root. Then this transcends up to the fifth, where I have 5, 7, root, 3, 5, 7, root, 3, and then it comes back down. Right along, what we have to do is apply the same principle to all the keys through the cycle of fourths. So what I need to do is I need to establish what the starting form is within each one of these keys. So if I start at C, that started at the root position. Then what I need to do is go to F, and I start on form 5. Then I go to the key of B flat, that's going to be the third, first variation. It then goes to the key of E flat, which starts on 7. I then go to the key of A flat, which starts on the third, second variation. Okay, I've now gone through my 5 keys, so that's all going to repeat itself again. So from D flat, I have the root position. From F sharp, I've got form 5. From B, I've got 3, first variation. From E, I've got 7. From A, I've got the third, second variation. And then I'm back to my root in the key of D. And then in the key of G, this concludes this with form 5. Okay, so now you go try it. So what I'm going to do now is apply this to the melodic filter. So over a C major 7th chord, this would be the ascending filter. Descending filter would sound like this. This would be the ascending descending filter. And then lastly, this would be the descending ascending filter. Concludes the third lesson of the Pentapositional Chord Studies course, which taught us all about the dominant seventh chord. We took a look at all the 5 positions, and we also looked at that in relation to every key, identifying the starting form and all those keys, and then working our way sequentially up the fretboard. So by now you should really be starting to get this concept and how important this is. Hopefully, what I hope that you're starting to realize is a real understanding of chord tones in general for the chords that we've really worked on so far. What I get a lot these days is guys asking me a lot about chord extensions. You know, they're really quizzing me about the 9, the 11s, and the 13s, and they say, you know, I find it really hard to understand how to relate to those. And when I start to probe and ask questions, what it really comes down to is those people don't know their chord tones yet. That's the foundation of everything. In actual fact, the chord extensions, as we'll find out later in our improvisation course, are actually chord tones as well, but they're the upper extensions of the chord. So what we need to understand first is the lower extensions. And for bass players, this is paramount because this is our home, this is our neighborhood. We need to be outlining the root of the chord, but we need to be able to take it further than that and not always just rely on the root. But in order to do that, I'll have to identify and establish a complete familiarity and understanding for all the chord tones, for all the different chord types, in every position, in every key, all over the fretboard. So as always, practice smart, play creatively, and I'll see you at the next lesson.